I'm in my 50s now, 4 kids, and I've lived a blessed, happy life. Wasn't always like this in my younger years. I grew up lower middle class, but I have to admit, we struggled at times and wasn't privy to things others had. My siblings and I grew up as latchkey kids, always tending to ourselves while our parents worked. Parents were first-generation immigrants, moved here when I was 6. As such, when I was younger, I ended up hanging around the wrong crowds and never graduated HS due to being dumb and stupid, with things, not inherently. To be honest, I'm surprised that I've made it this far in life whilst some of my former friends are either dead or in jail. As I said, I feel blessed I found a way out of my former self. In my younger years, my old man and I never got along. I'm sure it's because he never considered nor envisioned his kid's being a dropout, and the fact that we moved here with the intention of bettering ourselves only for me to waste it and take it for granted. My old man was adopted and he never really had a good family structure growing up, and never really knew how to be a parent. Instead of trying to explain things with words, he would discipline us in the only way he was raised. I think one could say he beat us up when we did wrong, no matter what it was, but it was discipline to him. Luckily for me, around 17 to 18 years old, a lot of things changed in my perception of the world, and I knew I had to get my life together. Ended up getting a GED and going to college. Got my degree, then went on to the working world. Got a job at good firm and used it as a stepping stone to better myself. Met my first wife, had 2 kids. My old man's demeanor slowly changed and he and I started getting along and started having a relationship as father and son should. It was a slow and steady thing and abruptly ended when my ex-wife and I divorced. Kids were below 10 years old at this time. I saw the old dad again, and in not agreeing with what I did, and he disowned me. I was on my own. Down the line, I met my current wife, and had 2 kids with her. Throughout this time, I never wavered with my responsibilities with my older kids and did what I could to make sure they were taken care of. I had them on weekends initially till the time I had them half the time. They got to know my current wife slowly, and in time, we became a family. The 2 kids I have with my current wife came after 5 years of marriage, and the older ones were happy that our family was growing. My parents saw from afar how I still had relations with my siblings, and it was them who would update my parents on my life, and they reached out to get to know my current family. I was happy to introduce them, and soon, they ended up welcoming everyone like nothing happened. As I said, life was finally good. Years later, Mom and Dad retired and decided to live in the old country, where they preferred, and the only drawback was that they both saw my kids occasionally, the elder 2 at the airport when they returned home and the youngest when I visited. It was hard on all, but we made the best of it. 2017, my mom died. I went home to pay my respect and got to meet my parents' family, whom I've only spoken with when I was a kid, and finally learned how my parents were when they were young. That's when I learned the hardship they went through, and I slowly began understanding why my old man was the way he was. During that trip, there was a night in which I was alone with my father and we had one of those bonding talk, where I let all my angst and feelings be known, and in turn, he did the same. He told me his story and I came to appreciate and respect why he did what he did, and as an adult, finally understood his reasons, especially being a father myself. Now that I think about it, that was the only time he opened up to me, and in the end, I thanked him for everything they've done and that I was sorry for what I put them through when I was younger. He surprised me by saying sorry as well. Throughout my life, he never said sorry to me and my siblings, and for him to open up and share what he did, good and bad, brought tears in my eyes. One of the things he said and words I will remember for the rest of my life: be better than me. Sadly, he passed away a few years later while we were worlds apart. I was in a funk for a while and didn't know how to deal with all the emotions I was feeling. It was my wife who had to remind me to think of the good things to help me through. Thinking back of that night when we had that talk helped tremendously, and as much as it hurt, eased my soul to where I was able to function once more. My family went back home, laid him to rest next to my mom. My old man, as much as he was not in my life in my younger years, taught me a lot. Even though we didn't have communications through words, I watched him take care of my mom, watched him provide for the family, and tried his best with what he had. Funny how I didn't see those traits in my younger years, but they make so much more sense now that I'm an adult and a family man. My eldest is soon to be married, and she and I had one of those father/daughter moment in which we were talking and she mentioned how she wished that my parents were there to see her get wed. I smiled and assured her that I'm sure they were both watching. We both teared a little and she gave me a hug, and while holding her, I said the same thing my dad told me that one memorable night.